More on taking control of iCloud with Joe Kissell. This is MacVoices. This edition of MacVoices is supported by our Patreon patrons. Help support MacVoices and gain access to the MacVoices Slack and MacVoices After Dark at patreon.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, this is part 2 in a 2-part conversation with Joe Kissell, the author of Take Control of iCloud 8th edition. As the 8th edition would indicate, there's a lot new here. Joe talked about some of it in the last edition of MacVoices. This time we dig into things like using your own domain with iCloud email, some of the many changes that have come to iCloud email, and some of the privacy changes that have come to iCloud as well. Let's go back and let Joe do the talking. I've been asking a lot of questions here, but, tell me what I need to know about iCloud and the book at this point. Good, bads, and difference.
One of the things that really surprised me when I was working on this book is how much effort Apple has put into iCloud for Windows. Now, we know that in Monterey and iOS 15, iPadOS 15, you can now have a FaceTime conversation with somebody using a Windows computer or an Android phone or whatever. And I was surprised at that. I was surprised at Apple actually embracing other platforms that way. And good for them, because not everybody has Apple stuff. So that's great. I was similarly surprised to see Apple put really any effort at all into iCloud for Windows. And they not only are continuing to develop it, but they expanded what you can do with photos in iCloud for Windows. They very, very significantly expanded what you can do with passwords. You can now sync your iCloud keychain to a Windows PC. That just wow! They have a browser extension for Microsoft Edge on Windows, not on the Mac, mind you, but on Windows, they have an extension for Microsoft Edge. You can fill in your iCloud keychain passwords. What? So, I use Windows only to the extent I need to do so to write my books when I mention cross-platform features like these. Okay, but hey, this is great. Some people just prefer using Windows, and some people have to use Windows. And I am very, very happy that Apple is bringing a bunch more aspects of iCloud to Windows. So, I know this is MacVoices, so I think I'm not really, most of the people listening to or watching this don't care, but I'm just saying that's a thing. There are some new account recovery features. So if you get locked out of your account, or you lose your password, or you die, there are now new methods that you or your executor, your loved ones, can use to get at your stuff. And Glenn has written about this kind of stuff extensively in his Apple ID book, and I have said a few things about digital legacy and take control of your digital legacy, which needs to be updated, and we'll get to that another day. But anyway, it's nice to see Apple noticing that people die, and noticing that people sometimes lose their devices, or their devices get stolen, or they forget their passwords, and giving them, more avenues to deal with that kind of stuff. So those are a couple of the sort of smaller things. Some of the bigger things, iCloud Plus. I love iCloud Plus. I didn't think I would, but it's not exactly new, but it's certainly new since the last edition of this book. And anybody paying for extra storage for iCloud, whether it's 99 cents a month or $10 a month, or whatever level you've chosen, you not only get the extra storage, which is the same as it was before, but you get all these additional features. You get new security and privacy features. And if you have one of the home security cameras that uses what's it called? I can never remember the name of it. HomeKit Secure Video. If you have one of those, you now get tons and tons of cloud storage for video clips from your home security camera. And new features added to Safari and new features added to Mail and all kinds of good stuff that is only available to paid. But you only have to pay 99 cents a month. It doesn't matter how much you pay, you still get access to these features. So I'm all about iCloud Plus, and do have a whole big new chapter on iCloud Plus in the book, and can't say enough good things about it. Another thing that I was kind of, and we can go back. I'm sure you're thinking, yeah, I want to, and Kissell just keeps talking. But I just want to mention one other thing that I think is really cool, and I talked about in the book, is a feature that used to exist back in the .Mac days and the Mobile Me days that went away with iCloud, and now it's back in a somewhat different form. It used to be that if you had your own domain name, you could use that domain name with your Apple email, and stuff would get sent to your Apple email account, but it would be addressed to your own domain name. And that went away with iCloud. Now it's back. So for the first time in many, many years, those people who prefer to have Apple process and deliver their email, but also prefer not to have their address end in iCloud.com, have an option. So I'm really happy that that is back. So that's just to get you started, just to give you a few things to chew on.
Well, that last one is interesting because that's different than the relay aspect of iCloud.
Yes. So let me address that first, since I hadn't actually gotten to that yet. That's one of these iCloud Plus features. Well, sorry, I might kind of get on a rabbit hole here. But so there's iCloud Private Relay, which is sort of a VPN-ish, a VPN-like feature that basically, when you're using Safari and in a few other situations, will prevent the site on the other end from knowing your real IP address or your location. So this is a privacy-enhancing feature, because without this turned on, and unless you use a VPN or some other tool, just by going to another website, that website can say, oh, I have that person's IP address, and that tells me a couple of things. It tells me where they are geographically, sometimes down to the street address. And because I can associate that IP address with information that I've gotten from, all these tracking cookies and advertising and, other visits to this site, I now have a profile on this person. I may or may not know their name, but I know that on February 3rd, they did a search for Nike sneakers. So therefore, I'm going to show them an ad for Nike sneakers. So if you think that kind of stuff is creepy, and I know I do, using this private relay feature will help to protect your privacy. Then there's another totally separate feature called Hide My Email. And with Hide My Email, you say, okay, well, I need to give somebody my email address, that attractive person I met in the bar, or the company I'm applying for a job for, or some possibly suspicious website, Take Control Books. What is that? And you don't want to give them your real address, but you want to make sure that you can actually get email from them. So this new feature, it's built into Monterey and iOS 15, and it's built into Apple Mail. And you can just, when you choose the from address, instead of choosing one of your own addresses, you just hide my email, and then Apple makes up an address for you. And it's something at iCloud.com. And that's the address you give out. And you can say, okay, any mail that comes into this address, I want you, Apple, to forward it to me at this other address. Any of your addresses, you can have it forwarded to. So the person on the other end can email you, but they don't know your real email address. And if you start getting spam from them or whatever, you just don't want them to contact you anymore, you can just delete that address and nothing anybody can do about it. So that's hide my email, and all of those things, the private relay and the hide my email, those are great new features in iCloud, but those are totally separate from the custom domain names. That in addition to those things, you can also say, well, I'm Joe at takecontrolbooks.com. I could set up iCloud so that all of the takecontrolbooks.com email is handled by Apple. I choose not to due to reasons, but I could if I wanted to.
Today's edition of MacVoices is supported by our Patreon sponsors. Support MacVoices at any level and gain access to the MacVoices Slack, where you can interact with the MacVoices live crew, participate in our discussions, and get your questions answered. You also get access to MacVoices After Dark, the uncensored, unscripted, and always enjoyable discussions before and after the MacVoices live show. Sign up at patreon.com/MacVoices, and thanks for supporting MacVoices. Joe, sort of along those lines, how difficult is this stuff to set up? I mean, it sounds great and it sounds cool, and definitely there's a lot of security advantages. But you've gone through the process. Is it something that the quote-unquote average user can do and feel good about it?
The only one of these features that I would say is not particularly user-friendly is that last one, is the custom domain name. So you could go on to the iCloud website and say, well, I want to use whatever. I want to use takecontrolbooks.com with my Apple email because I own that domain name. I will first say, for a person to own their own domain name at all implies, I think, at least a smidgen of technical acumen. I mean, my mom is not going to go out and buy a domain name. Like, she's smart, but I think that whole concept would just, so you have to have at least a smidgen of technical wherewithal to even own your own domain name in the first place. So Apple is going to have you fill out a form and say, okay, this is the domain name and these are the email addresses I want to use that domain name and all this stuff. And it's going to say, okay, great. So now that you've done that, you need to go to your domain registrar or your DNS provider, which may or may not be the same company, and go fiddle around with these settings. And that's where it gets weird. Now, I own like dozens of domain names, and I have done all kinds of super weird advanced DNS management and changing name servers and putting in MX records and all that stuff. That's totally old hat for me. No problem at all. But for people who are unaccustomed to that kind of stuff, unfortunately, Apple's instructions are only kind of general. Like, they can't offer instructions for every single registrar and DNS provider out there. If you use EasyDNS, you're going to do it one way. If you use GoDaddy, you're going to do it another way. If you use, there's a million of them, right? So if that is the point at which I would predict a lot of people would get hung up. It's not, from my point of view, it's not hard. You just got to go in and set up a record for. But if you are the sort of person who gets a scowl on your face when the whole notion of editing DNS records comes up, maybe that's not a feature for you.
Okay. That's good. Joe, I know we could go for hours because there's so many aspects of iCloud, but before we wrap up, anything that, to put a bottom line on it before we talk about the specifics of the book?
Yeah, I mean, there's new stuff with Find My and so there's so many things. We things that we barely touched on and things we didn't even mention, but there's just a lot of new stuff in it. At Take Control, we try to find things that confuse people, things that cause people pain, and things that frustrate people, and figure that stuff out as best we can and say, okay, we looked into it, and here's what you got to know. So iCloud has become one of those things. It's not simply you enter your email address and password and boom, you got iCloud. Oh, check some boxes and stuff syncs and that's it. I wish it were that way. But in fact, a lot of it is really confusing. And a lot of it, when things go wrong, it's hard to figure out what is the cause of this. And so the point of this book is to explain as much as possible what's going on and what parts of it you can affect and what parts of it you can't affect. And I don't have the solution to every problem, but I have the solutions to some problems, and at least you will kind of know more about what is going on behind the scenes. A simple thing like, should I check this box or not, could have big consequences, like when you get into the documents and desktop sync. So that's kind of stuff the book talks about. It has grown to 230 pages. And I think anybody who uses iCloud should really have this information available to them. Even if you don't read the whole thing, just having it as a reference for when you do have those questions, and you will have those questions, I think would be a good idea.
I would agree with that. And I know we're talking the book up, but at the same time, the cloud is still something that a lot of folks are struggling with at different levels, understanding it, learning to use it effectively. And the fact that there are a few places, because look, let's face it, I mean, we're talking iCloud today, but there are a lot of cloud services out there, and they each have hiccups and little idiosyncrasies and boxes to check that, if you're not sure you know what you're doing, then, I just had the situation with Dropbox where, I had not checked something that should have been checked, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And so it took me about 4 hours to figure it out. And then once it did, it's like, oh, that makes perfect sense, but I didn't have a guide. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, the price, upgrade information, all that stuff that we usually talk about.
Right. So that's a $14.99 book. If you had any previous edition, even the first edition of Take Control of iCloud back in 2000, it's $5 to upgrade. So, we almost every time we release a new book, someone will write to me and say, "What? I thought all updates were free forever." I'm like, I never promised that. Like, I mean, we put out a lot of free updates, but I never promised that all updates would be free forever, because, like, I have to eat and I have to pay my editor. I mean, people don't write books for free. People don't edit books for free. Just because stuff has changed, I can't put weeks of my life into something and then just give it away because I'm not infinitely wealthy. So we try to be as generous as we possibly can. I mean, you're saving 2/3 of the price of a new book when you upgrade. You don't have to upgrade, but we'd love for you to, because you'll have the very, very latest information. But $5 to update. If there is a version, let's say 8.0.1, informed sources tell me that is definitely going to happen probably before you see this, because bugs happen. That'll be free. If there's an 8.1, that'll be free. Some point down the road, there's bound to be a 9th edition, and we're going to ask you to pay for that. But we think that our prices are more than fair. And so $15 new, $5 for an upgrade. And as always, if you're buying it new, if you put 3 full price books in your cart, or more than 3, you get 30% off. So there you go.
Yeah. And for this kind of thing, you really, really have to have the current information, or as current as you can get, because things change. And just over the course of time, Joe and I have been talking about this particular book and iCloud. So many things have changed. Things that you could trust, things maybe you couldn't trust, now you can trust. And issues that have come up, and new features like the private relay chat. So, there's just always changes. Joe, it's so good to have you back. I hope you get all the domestic stuff straightened out that comes with any move, and that but at least you're back in the saddle and producing stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's good. The thing that I have been looking forward to so much for months is just like having my office set up, having my desk, not just like a tray table that I bought for $25 because I had to have something to put my computer, but like my actual desk, all of my equipment around me, and to have all these gigantic projects that I've been working on for months and months and months be done so that I can just work. Like a lot of people are like, oh, well, I have to go to work, but no, like I get to go to work. I get to do what I do for a living, what I like doing, but, I haven't been able to do that for so long, and I'm glad that once again I can. And I do think that in the next couple of months or so, the pace of new releases will pick up quite a bit.
Well, you're welcome back here anytime, along with any of the other Take Control authors. We try to get on everybody we can, especially if the updates, even if they're 0.1 updates, are significant. Sometimes I know it's just a matter of a couple T's and I's being dotted and crossed, but we try to make sure that folks have an idea of what the upgrades are and why they should upgrade. So
right on.
TakeControlBooks.com is where you go, folks, to get this book from Joe and all the other great books from all the other great authors. Joe, we'll see you back here again soon, I hope.
Definitely.
Excellent.
Looking forward to it.
Excellent. Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. Go to TakeControlBooks.com. Get yourself educated. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices, or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.